Alright guys, welcome back to another Borderlands 3 video, another build video, and in this one we're going to be going over the character Flak. The Beastmaster class, he has a lot of interesting, skills and perks that have to do with his beasts and things like that, and we're going to be going over a very good build, probably one of the best builds out there, that is especially great for if you're starting out and you really want to use this character. This is a solid one to aim for that has a lot of perks around increasing damage. A lot of the skills interact with each other to help increase damage that you can deal, and also regenerating health. Now, regenerating health isn't something I like a ton. I much prefer shield, but he doesn't really have any shield buff. So, focusing on health is the next best thing. And also those things happen to go hand in hand with increasing damage. So it all works out. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So first of all, basically the set that you want to focus on here, the skill tree you want to focus on is the Stalker one. I much prefer this one because of how many buffs you can get to damage throughout here. And also at the very end, you get this one right here, which is that you and your pet gain increased damage. And also if you're at full health, that damage is doubled, which is like 50%. Obviously, that's a very good skill to have. So starting it out here, obviously you're going to want to equip this one right here, your action skill, and also equip your pet. These are going to come in handy later because, some of the skills interact with all of that stuff. But starting it out here, you're going to want to get all of these eventually, but I would first focus on this one right here, which lowers your cooldown and increased damage for your attack command. 30%, that's solid all around. And then you can also go for these 5 over here. It's a hunter skill, which after shooting an enemy, you gain a stack of furious attack. And those, you can see the stats down there. It helps to increase gun damage, helps to increase handling, and you get them by simply shooting an enemy. So, it's pretty easy to get those stacks, and that always helps out. Now, after that, then we are going to come back to this one right here, which has to do with maximum health and health regeneration. But I'd first focus on getting some of these other ones, because once we get down to a couple of the skills down here, that's really when you want to go back and get the health regeneration, because as of right now, it doesn't really help that much. So if you're just starting out, avoid it for now and then come back to it. But after that, I would then pick up this one right here, get all 5 of those because it increases fire rate, which obviously, helps to deal more damage in the long run, which is of course helpful. And that's plus 10% overall and plus another 10% after reloading, which is very solid all around. Now after that, then we are going to be coming back to this one too. It's solid because it reduces your action skill cooldown time. But again, we'll come back to that. You can also get this one right here right away if you're having trouble with fight for your life. This one's actually optional. If you're not going down very much, you don't really need it, but if you are, or maybe you're having trouble with a boss fight in particular, it can be helpful to have this one, so might as well grab it just in case you get into a tough spot. And again, that helps because your pet can actually come and help revive you. But I would also go for this one too, because this one is probably one of his best skills overall, because just look at how much it does. Whereas most characters that have these increased skills that have to do with moving around, they only have them to do with moving around, whereas this character, you get buffs for moving and also standing still, which is super helpful. So go ahead and max those all out, because you can then see that you get damage reduction while moving, 17.4%, health regeneration while moving, 0.9% of max health per second. Very solid all around. But then when you're standing still, you get plus 25% gun damage and also an increase your fire rate by 12%, which is very, very good all around. So whether you're standing still or moving, you're getting buffs, and they're solid buffs too, which is definitely, something to take note of. On top of that, I would then go right into this one right here, which helps to increase your gun damage by 25% across the board. Also your movement speed, which is all right, but it's an extra bonus that's coupled in with that gun damage. But for sure, we're already adding up gun damage by quite a bit with all of this stuff. Also fire rate will help that as well. But then you also want to focus on this one right here. You want to max this one out for sure, because you can get an overall damage buff of 30%, not just gun damage, which is something to take note of too, but when an enemy has no target or is attacking a different target, you get that 30% increased damage, which seems a little bit odd, but it's actually super helpful when you consider your pet. So let's talk a little bit about the pets right now and go into the skills a bit and which ones you should probably be using. So this one is the Jabber Sidekick, which is fairly solid all around because it can carry a pistol, an SMG, stuff like that. And actually, if you look over here, you can upgrade it to like the Beefcake, where it carries a shotgun. You gain increased movement speed and maximum health, and then it also gets like a melee weapon, which is okay, but I would actually prefer this one right here. So go ahead and equip that, switch it out with your main one up here, because for this one, it gains an SMG, and you also gain increased movement speed and critical hit damage, which is also yet another buff to damage. And then what's also cool about that is that it can also equip a rocket launcher, which is of course very helpful. But then moving on back to here, I would equip this one right here, because it makes your main skill a lot more useful, because you don't lose that cloaking ability after you fired your 3 shots, which is great because it avoids enemies targeting you, which means you can deal that extra 30% 30% damage a lot of the time. So it works well together, and I definitely recommend it. And then after that, I would also equip this one to slot 2 because again, it helps with this skill right here, because after fade away ends, you then continue to not be targeted a lot of the time, because as you can read right there, it draws the attention of all enemies in a huge radius, which obviously benefits this one again, meaning that you can deal that extra 30% damage even more. And also the pet gains increased damage reduction, which is very helpful considering it is 80% damage reduction for 6 seconds, I believe. And then the rest of these are okay. This one's all right down here, but again, I would focus on these two because it goes well with this skill overall. And then after that, you can maybe go back to this one and start purchasing your health ones as well. Or actually, sorry, we already made it down here. I would for sure get this right away because it increases damage for you and your pet when you activate an action skill, which is obviously your action skill for the fade away. And again, an extra 25% damage on top of all of these. That's like over 100% damage overall, or sorry, 100% bonus damage, which is great, especially considering the fact that if you see over there, if you're at full health, the increased damage is doubled, adding even more to it. So yeah, that is very great all around. But going back here again, I would get this one because you want to focus on that regeneration of health to help benefit that skill down there, and also the one where you need to be above half your health, but also a good shield will help out with that. Also going for this one right here helps to reduce your action skill cooldown time, which then helps with this skill, and then again that benefits this one, which then benefits this one. It all works together like great. And then you can also get this one down here for health regeneration of 8% for your health and your pet's health, and that is for 3 seconds total, so 24% after eliminating an enemy is very solid. But do keep in mind it's only of your missing health, it's not of your total health, so it's going to be more useful when you're at a lower health. And then for this one right here, I mean, it's okay, but personally I'm not a huge fan of it because if you're playing solo, then you don't really benefit from it that much, but it does help your pet's health regeneration. So it's something to consider, but I would maybe take a look instead at some of the other trees, because that is pretty much all we need to do for this tree. We've maxed out like a ton of it, worked on these skill augments, which go very well with all of the other stuff. However, I would take a look through some of these things because you have 7 more skill points, and one of the ones I would focus on in particular is this one right here. If you get all 3 of them, you get another 12% gun damage bonus, and also an increase to your action skill duration by almost half, which is obviously great to have with all of the stuff we've been talking about with the action skill. And then after that, I would either put all 4 of your points in here or go back to this one and get it, but that's a choice I want to leave up to you depending on how you want to play. Both of them benefit your pet overall, and it's not the biggest deal, but you got to ask the question, do you either want to focus on your pet's damage, because this can increase it by 40% with our remaining skill points, or you can instead do this one and maybe one of that because you have a leftover skill point, but this will obviously again increase your pet's health. So choose one of those, but overall guys, that is the build I want to show you today. I'm not focusing on these other trees very much because I'm not a huge fan of them, especially with their ending skills. Like this one right here is a melee skill, which I've never been a fan of melee ones. It's a little bit weird how it works too, so you know, it varies a lot. It's not very straightforward. And then this one is fairly good overall too. I mean, a 20% chance to get a critical hit without trying to get a critical hit is solid all around, but also you should be probably aiming for criticals anyways, so it's not the most useful thing, especially when that's not going to be dealing a ton of extra damage, whereas with this one, you know, you get a solid 25% damage overall. So that's why I would choose this one. And then, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the other things. There's some good ones in here. And actually taking a look at the hunter tree specifically, because if you want, you can maybe switch out like 5 skill points from the main tree that we were using, the Stalker tree, that was the one we were using. You can maybe switch out 5 of those and put them somewhere around here in the hunter tree, because if you want, you can choose this one, interplanetary stalker, where you get stacks of interplanetary stalker for getting eliminations. It's a weird name for a skill, but it's actually pretty interesting because you can also get plus 10% damage per stack, and then plus 15% action skill damage, human bonus, that's what it's called. Robot bonus goes up to 7.5% corrosive damage per stack, and beast bonus is plus 7% movement speed per stack, and that is also dependent on the type of enemy you eliminate. So that's how you get those bonuses. But yeah, it's fairly interesting overall. So if you want, you can get those, and then maybe you can also, if you want, try and get a little bit of the hunter's eye as well, because that can be fairly well. You get bonuses for fighting different types of enemies, like increased critical hit damage against humans, which is fine, 30% versus robots, which is pretty good, and then damage reduction versus beasts, which is solid as well. That's a good buff like all around. I would rather have, you know, increased damage overall, so that's why we're again focusing on like the Stalker tree. But hey, if you're working together with all of those, maybe you can add even more damage to that. But yeah, the rest of the skills, obviously we can't make it to those in this build, so maybe we'll have to make another video focusing focusing on one of these other trees, maybe coupling it with like a special shield or item. I don't know, maybe also going over the master tree a little bit as well, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. But I definitely think this tree right here is a solid one to choose, so yeah. But anyways, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more Borderlands 3 videos coming out in the near future. On top of that, you can check out some of my previous videos here. Just go ahead and pick which one you want to watch. I'm not 100% which ones I'm going to put there yet. I think some other skill builds for the other characters, but yeah. Either way, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one.